Hello everyone, this is Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritually Inspired show. And my guest today is Rainey Highley. Rainey is a lawyer by training, receiving her JD from the University of Texas and her BA in English from Baylor University. Rainey's own journey to authenticity began over 20 years ago after graduating from one of the nation's top law schools and embarking on a career as a corporate attorney. With a growing sense of dissatisfaction, unhappiness, and a gut feeling that something just wasn't right, Rainey left the practice of law to discover her authentic calling. Inspired by the works of famous authors, lightworkers, and psychics such as Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, James Redfield, Eckhart Tolle, Don Miguel Ruiz, Rainey has become an avid student of metaphysics since 1995 and a skilled interdimensional communicator since 2003. Her work centered around the power of imagination, identifying innovative thought as fundamental to the expansion of our collective reality and essential for bridging the current human experience to the next era. Rainey believes that it is time for the next generation of spiritual visionaries to step forward. She's the author of two amazing books, Divine Macroverse and The Water Code. Rainey, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Claudiu.
Rainey, what can you share with us about your journey to discover the authentic calling?
It's been amazing for me because I think I always say that I had my awakening in 2003, and kind of that's when my eyes were opened and I was just like a sponge wanting to absorb as much information as I could get. And I was really looking for something different, something that was outside of this thing that cycles over and over that we're fed as in our educational systems. So, my journey led me to kind of exploring, on the fringe. I started reading channeled books and looking for something that was new. I'm like, where does new information come from? Because this is just recycled old information. And so I was drawn to that mechanism as a means to bring new information in. And so, it was like some sort of ancient memory, I just remembered how to do it. I laid down while I was meditating one day in 2003 and just started having this communication that was so vivid and so real. And, when you have an experience like that, it's just like 100%. It just is so truth. It's just grounded in truth, and trying to share that with other people kind of became my goal, I guess, as an author.
And what was the reaction to those around you when you first tried to share that experience?
I mean, people thought I was crazy. I come from a traditional background. I grew up in Texas. I have the legal background. And so coming in and saying, I channeled this book and, it talks about things outside of the earth plane. People were just like, I just thought, okay, universe, my mission is to put this information out there, and, whoever resonates with it, that's great. I'm not here to convince people. I'm just here to give,
That's very important. Yes, I reached the same conclusion that I have to put out myself with the information which I'm given and not try to convince anyone. They will take whatever is good for them. They can apply it or they can discharge it. But in the end is, our mission to just come up with as much information as possible, especially for the timing we are living in.
Well, and, it became really apparent to me that grounding the information in a tangible form, like a book, really creates like a portal of access for everyone else on the planet. You know what I mean? It's like what you dive into and what you master becomes accessible to everyone. So, it was much more than writing a book to have an audience. It was like, okay, I'm bringing this information in and I'm holding open. I'm trying to expand this notion of what is, this notion of like that we recycle, and just like, let's make it bigger. Let's start thinking outside the box. Let's start asking these important questions like, what brought us here? Why are we here? What's all this suffering? There were so many things going on that I was just really a sponge trying to find these answers so that I could share them with others.
And yes, these are existential questions which sometimes ask ourselves, but not for a long period of time. And then we forget to go back to them and go deeper and try to find meaning for these questions.
Yeah. And and for me, it was just this deep sense that something was wrong. Like, as beautiful as the earth is and as wonderful as human beings are, there was something going on that didn't sit right with me. And so I was on this journey to discover what that was. Like, what is really going on? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And to just know that, like, every minute that I spend on that path is like, okay, I'm living in harmony. Like, so I just knew that I just had to walk this path. Otherwise I was just going to live a life of dissatisfaction,
Yes. The subtitle of your book, Divine Macroverse, is A Light Worker's Guide to Transforming the Ego Virus. It's interesting because in a previous interview, one of my guests touched on the subject of ego and mentioned that it is important to be aware of our ego, and it's not necessarily good to suppress it because it complements, our navigation through this existence. What's your take on that, on the ego concept?
Well, I think that the ego's been hijacked. I think that the ego was intended to work kind of as our left brain, to interpret the right brain creative stuff. But I think it's been hijacked. And what I talk about in Divine Macroverse, or what they talk about in Divine Macroverse, is that, and I do think it's pretty interesting given this whole virus COVID-19 thing we're going through, but that, the ego was hijacked. It was like a virus was implanted, and it became a mechanism to enslave us. And I know that that's, for the average person, that's a lot to swallow. And that's why, I wrote this book in 2008, and it's like, okay, 2020, I think people are finally at a place where maybe they could start reading it and like taking that in. I'm obviously not you, but I mean like general population. So, for me, it was just a real calling, a real calling to bring this information in and to share this message that, there's a reason that you're here. People who are attracted to this book or your book, they're light workers. They're here with a bigger purpose. And so there's this feeling like, okay, I've got to be on this mission. What is this mission? I have a calling. What am I supposed to be doing? And it's like, we never rest until we're on that path. And for me, it was really important to find out, okay, look, this is divinely orchestrated. All the chaos that we're in, that this apparent chaos, is divinely orchestrated, and the outcome is that light wins. Like, I would love to believe that everything was harmonious and great, but I do truthfully and honestly believe there's a war going on, and it's a war going on for humanity. It's a war going on for this earth, and there's millions of people incarnated right now who are light workers who've agreed to come and bring the light, to hold that space, to hold that energy so that we can help the earth heal from the inside out. And this book, Divine Macroverse, was, to me, it was such a gift from like my friends on the other side. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, this really answers all of, my big questions initially. And it's such a guidebook for like, how are we going to navigate these new higher dimensions? What are the rules? How do we, different rules of physics, different rules of everything. And we're there. And so this is our time. This is when this is becoming relevant. So I kind of went on a tangent there. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. in preparation for the interview, I went back to the book. I browsed it. I look at certain chapters, and I realized that I have to reread it. It's very important. The same for the water codes. This information there, which comes forward every time I open the book, and I need time to process it. I cannot say that I understand everything from the first read. So I encourage people to, go through it once or twice, and even 3 times, because it's always something new to find out. And staying on the divine macroverse subject, you mentioned about the 13 dimensions. Can you expand a little bit on their meaning and importance, please?
Sure. So, for me, the question, how I got there was like, okay, what's beyond the earth? What's kind of the structure of everything outside of the earth? And what was communicated to me was like all I can describe is like in a language of light, it's like imagery and beauty and sacred geometry, not like language like we use language. So it was I did my best to translate what I saw into language and put it in this book. And what I was shown was I'm like the structure of all that is, or if there's no container of all that is, but in our limited perception, we need some sort of structure to put it in. So that's what I did, is I put it in a container, and they kind of showed me how it was, there are 13 dimensions of being, there's 13 dimensions of us, and there's 13 actual dimensions or realms of the macroverse where, there's a different focus in each dimension. And we happen to be on the third dimension, or that's, what we had been in as an earth. And that was focused on emotion. That was a lot of how we translate emotion, how we sit with emotion, how, our emotions are sent out to others. And so it's a real fascinating journey into the number 13, a number that has been so, is feared in society. I mean, there's buildings that don't even have 13 floors, they go 12 to 14. And it's like, what is so scary about 13? And what I realized was like our clocks and everything go to 12, and it's like, we go back to 1. If we were going to go to 13, we would be spiraling. We would not be circling. We would not be repeating the pattern. We'd be going somewhere new. And so it's the lack of 13 that's kept us in this repetitive cycle. Do you know what I mean? So 13 is a real magical number. And, I mean, for me, it was a big aha, because I was like, okay, that makes sense. 13 is something that's magical and mystical and meaningful and needs to be, let's think about it more. Let's, jump into it more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We talked for the first time, I think, a little bit over 2 years ago. You're driving to Sedona, and you're excited for this new adventure. And you told me that you're drawn to that place. What exactly drew you to Sedona?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's something ancient here in the Red Rocks that is just, for me, it's indescribable. I mean, I'd been visiting here for like 15 years or 20 years. Like every year, come here, visit. And finally, I was here meditating, because I would always come here and just like get centered, fill up, and then I'm like, go back to war in LA or the big city or whatever. And I was in Boynton Canyon, meditating in the vortex at the top of this rock. And I was just like, guides, what am I supposed to do? I just feel so connected to Sedona. It's like, I want to be here. And I just heard, like, clear as day, move to Sedona, like get a house, move to Sedona. And I was like, I mean, that's one of the clearest messages I've ever received. I literally started looking for houses, and 6 months later I'd moved here. So it was a journey into following my bliss. It was a journey into saying, you know what, I need to live in a place that really I'm passionate about. I'm a Taurus. I love the land. Like I need that grounding, that earth. And so for me, I wake up really, I wake up every day and I'm like, oh, I'm so lucky to live here. I just feel so grateful, you know? It was a good decision.
And since you are there, I will have to ask a personal question. Have you met any interesting people, any, like indigenous people who were able to take you through medicine wheel ceremony or any other type of traditional ceremony?
You know, I went through a ceremony with a Peruvian shaman and his wife. I actually did it on December 31st, January 1st of 2018. Right before I moved to Sedona. And it was like a really powerful ceremony where, they saged. It was like we laid out in sacred geometric patterns. We were saying our intentions. We were focused. We were in this space of joy to really manifest on a good level. And it was like, okay, I'm intending for my year to just, be magnificent. I'm ready to go into the higher dimensions. I'm ready, for the earth to evolve. Let's do this, that gung-ho spirit. And I have to say that my life transformed pretty significantly following that ceremony. So I know that they're powerful. That was the whole moving to Sedona. I had a lot of destruction. My mom passed, my dog of 14 years passed. I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, okay, Rainey, you're a warrior. You signed up for this. This is it. This is what you came for. So, anyway, it's been a real journey just getting here and finding my way through it all, really. So, and to answer your question, as far as other ceremonies, there's another amazing woman that I met here who's a shaman. She's been a shaman for like 15 years. And if I've ever met anyone who's like, I'm like, oh, I think you're on the council and you're here. Like, she's just like amazing. So she's been doing some really, we've been meeting once a week since this whole quarantine thing has been going on. And we're just doing energy work to help the light, to help, the earth, to help humanity. And it's been, we've been talking about maybe doing some sort of program that's like an online course, like a 13-step program, as far as like really preparing people for this new earth that we're stepping into.
It's amazing how many people come together these days in prayer and meditation just to increase the earth frequency and bring the white light and the positive light and vibration and make us all better.
Yeah, it's powerful. And yesterday 4/4 had big meditation, so we're flying high on that energy now.
Yes. In your book, you mentioned about the experiences you had in the Library of Knowledge, which is located in the sixth dimension. Is that the equivalent of the Akashic records, which people are more used to know of?
Yes, I believe that it is. That's my understanding. It was almost like I was shown this vision when I got there of this huge, really, really tall library. Okay. And even though they weren't like actual books everywhere, do you know what I mean? It was like this a sense of, okay, all the information's here. And, when I went into that chamber, they showed it was like a book opened up, and then all of these, this information just came out, in multiple dimensions. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just like words on a page. So it was showing me things. And then I did my best to really translate that information. And I, it was a real honor to be able to go into that room and to go into the Library of Knowledge and to, I would say one thing that I do believe I bring to the table is a real open mind. I can hear a lot of things and still be very clear in my view. You know what I mean? And so I had an open enough mind to be able to bring this information in without changing it. You know what I mean?
Interesting. And what can you share with us about your experience with the Council of Elders at the beginning, and your continuous collaboration with them?
Yeah, so I mean, the beginning was really magical. It was one fall day. I was out in my backyard. All these trees were around me. I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but I had a trampoline and I was just laying there looking at all these gorgeous leaves up above me, thinking, oh, look at all the colors. And I remember thinking, okay, I know I'm here for a purpose. What am I supposed to be doing? This is 2008. I know this. And all of a sudden, like in 1 second, all of the leaves dropped. Like it was one of these, like, did that just happen kind of moments? I'm like, all of the leaves just dropped on me. I was in tears because it was this beautiful, like meaningful thing. And I had this real clarity in what I was supposed to be doing, this feeling of like, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I ran inside and I got an actual pen and paper and started writing and started, channeling divine macroverse and bringing the messages through. And I would say kind of what the things that I've noticed about the council or my experience with the council is they're at a very high joy vibration. So for me to maintain communication with them, I have to, unfortunately here on earth, it's a lot of effort to stay in that joy vibration. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lightheartedness and this fun feeling about being with them, and this, it's not a serious, like, governmental group. You know what I mean? It's a higher frequency than that, if that makes sense.
In both your books, you mentioned about fire and water as elements of creation. Does the creation you referred to have any divine intervention, or is just the physical manifestation of energy and ingredients such as carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, all these type of elements?
I mean, my view is, and the information that I received is that it's definitely divine, that there's definitely a creative force, a source, an energy behind it that's good, that's light and that's beautiful and wonderful. So I don't think it's just a confluence of different, elements coming together. I think it's definitely more than that. And I definitely do believe in, I have a very spiritual view of things, just not, doesn't really fit into a lot of the religious, structures on earth. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, I know a lot of people will go with the notion of spirituality rather than religion, because that's sometimes affiliated with dogma. And we don't go into the pattern of what the religion and dogma would like us to believe and go by. So that's why even myself, I believe in God, and I really am spiritual, but not necessarily religious, because I don't follow that pattern. And I know some people might get upset with that, but that's the reality. So for someone who wants to increase their vibration, wants to step on a spiritual path, what would you suggest?
Well, I would say there's a few things that they could do on a daily basis that would help. The first thing would be, before getting out of bed, try to come up with 10 things you're grateful for, just like because that gets your brain on that positive path. So 10 things that you're grateful for. I'm breathing, my bed is comfortable, whatever it is. And then if you're able to do a 10-minute meditation, start your day just getting clear and meditation, just to remind everyone, I view prayer as kind of like you're asking God or source or whatever for something, and meditation is you're receiving that answer. So you're open to receive. So being open to receive, allowing that high vibrational information to come in. And then I think it's really important to get outside into nature, even if it's just on your patio, getting some sun, getting outside, drinking blessed, harmonized water is very important for keeping that vibration high. And then making sure that you're really careful about what you put in your body and mind, as far as like being careful. I mean, I'm really, really cautious watching things these days. Like I can't even, if it's too negative, I just have to turn it off. You know what I mean? Like it's just, so I think, choosing harmonious foods, choosing harmonious shows to watch, choosing harmonious words to use, that's the best way to increase harmony in one's life.
Staying on the subject of water, the other book, The Water Codes, was an important element of my research for water entanglement. How your relationship with water has evolved since you wrote the book?
It has become part of my life, and it's just like so deeply ingrained in my life. I always have my blue bottles filled up with the words on them, sitting in the sun, sitting in the full moon. I'm blessing them. I'm speaking words to it. I'm blessing my water before I drink it. It's a real important part of my life because, like it came through in the water code, yes, we have all this to explore, but we also have all this, which is much, as expansive, if not much more expansive. And the inner is just, it's a reminder. Focusing on drinking the pure high vibrational water is a reminder to keep the insides of your body at that high vibration in any way that we can.
Yes, I mean, people know that we are 60-70% water. I mean, our bodies are 60-70% composed of water, but they don't realize that the quality of water in our bodies should be structured, as we say, is to have a certain molecular structure in order to maintain our health and, be energetic and stay healthy. And that little effort you just mentioned about, praying over water, keeping positive words on the bottle help. So people should do that.
Well, and one thing that has really come to my attention lately is singing out loud. Okay. So I remember back in 2012, I think it was, I went to see Dr. Emoto over at Angel Valley here in Sedona. And he had like a full day seminar, and he showed all his, messages from water pictures. And he's just, such a gentle being. And, he's now passed, obviously. But anyway, he played all of this music that, and he had everyone sing, and he was showing what happens to the water molecules when we sing. And, it's amazing how much water wants to move, it wants to dance, it wants, it was just like in Dr. Emoto's eyes, that was like the highest vibratory thing you could do for your water. And I think we were singing Imagine, by John Lennon. And so, I've started incorporating into my daily routine, and it's something I did after I got the breast cancer diagnosis, is I sing for like an hour every morning. And I'm not a good singer. I just turn it on and, God love my neighbors, but, I just sing out loud. So I want to put that out there because, it seems like silly, or it seems like something so simple, but it can really adjust your frequency, and the water in your body responds so well to it,
And I can attest for, chanting, singing, praying.
Yep.
Because several years ago, I had 2 or 3 nodules on my thyroid, and they were quite big. And I went for an ultrasound. They found the nodules. They said, come back in 6 months, see if they are stress related or whatever. So during these 6 months, I took some vitamins, some mushrooms, legal ones, of course. I chanted, I prayed, and I went back 6 months later. They did the scan again, and they called me next day saying, can you come back? We think that the equipment is broken because nothing came up on the x-ray. So I went back next day, and it was the same result. So they can be diminished, and they can even be gone, destroyed through positive vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm experiencing these days with music through like crystals, crystal balls. There is a lady on, you can find it on YouTube, is May Lau Mauritius. And then Tom Kenyon from Seattle. He has an amazing voice, both of them, in fact, and they play with crystal balls. It's an
Nice.
amazing sensation.
Yeah. I'll definitely check it out.
Um, about the special times we are living in these days, what do you think we can do to overcome, fear and stay on the positive side?
I think it's really important. A couple things. One is being present in your body, so really, whether it's through meditation or prayer, just grounding yourself in your body every day is important. And then I think secondly, movement is important. So whether it's walking outside or doing yoga or just walking on a treadmill or whatever you can do, moving is important to just get the water moving in your body so it doesn't get stuck or stagnant and negative thoughts arise. These are interesting times. And I know that it's easy to get discouraged because it seems like we don't have a lot of control over what's happening. But I will remind you of two books, okay? I mean, one is obviously Divine Macroverse. Guess what? We win. Light wins. That's the end result. When you pull a book like this out of the ethers, you're stepping outside of time into a timeless space where things have already been completed. The earth experience has already happened. We know the outcome. We win. And the second book that I'll remind you of is Family of Light, channeled by Barbara Marciniak, which if you haven't read it, it's, one of my all-time favorite books. But it does talk about, I remember reading it and it was talking about family of light, family of dark. And I was like, I don't want to think of it that way. I don't want to think about the negative, let's just focus on the positive. But, we're here helping the earth. And I really do believe there's a battle going on. And so as light workers, people who are tuned in and watching your show, the best thing we can do is have that intention to assist the earth, to assist light, to bring more light in, to bring more goodness in, to bring more harmony in, to allow ourselves to be conduits for that energy. I think this is our time. This is our time to be doing that. It's our time to be singing, keeping our vibration high, despite what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember my friends and I talking like, what would happen if you ever went to jail? And I'm like, oh, I would meditate 7 hours a day and I would do yoga. And, you think you have this whole plan for how you would and we're in it. This is our time to do that. We're in our, thankfully, beautiful homes and not in any cell, but, this is our time to pull into what's deep within us and call that out and really be, representatives and advocates for the light.
Yes, and we all understand that there is a hard time right now with people losing their jobs and they worry about their finances, but they're worried about their finances before as well because they're living from paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. So just, stepping back and looking and assessing their situation in a much more calm way could be the best option for.
And I mean, you think about at a time like this, I would encourage people to think about what's possible. Okay. Not what the media tells us is probable, but what's possible. And, this is what's possible is this is a crumbling of an old system. It's an old paradigm that wasn't working. And we are getting reset. We're pulling the power out and putting the power back in and rebooting. And it's an opportunity for us to recreate the earth in a better way, in a more harmonious way. And so I would say anyone who gets down, just say, no, this is what we signed up for. We came here for this. We came here to be ambassadors of light. And, that means maintaining our calmness, tapping into our memories that we have, and sharing our light with other people to provide inspiration.
Yes. When should we expect another book in the Divine Macroverse series?
I feel one coming on. I really do. And I'm like this, once I finish remodeling my house, I'm going to get to writing. I'm in the midst of painting my cabinets and things, but I have a third one coming through, and it's on the topic of respect. So, Divine Macroverse was the topic of freedom. Water Code is the topic of truth. I have two more to come. One is on the topic of respect, and one's on the topic of compassion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you to read them.
Thank you.
So going back to the Council of Elders, do they change when they talk to you, or are the same entities all the time?
It's been mainly the same entities. There've been a couple who've kind of like switched out, because they're based on frequency. But there's interesting, they have a very distinct personalities, I guess you could say, different energetic signatures. Some are light and cheerful and joking, and some are, less joking, but still light and all of that. So, there's definitely a feeling of festivity and celebration every time I meet with them. My communication with them should make everyone feel super secure that the good guys win. You know what I mean? It's just like they're already celebrating. They already have celebrations planned. It's just a matter of us just walking through this. So I think we've got this. I don't think we should worry.
That's comforting. Thank you. I know Sedona has inspired you a lot, and the energy the area has. Can you tell us more about your For Authenticity program and all the other programs you are running, like the yoga, hot yoga, and everything else?
Yeah, so I'm teaching hot yoga. I teach that at the Sedona Hot Yoga Studio. I also do private lessons. Hot yoga is something that really helped me personally with integrating all of this information and maintaining a calm sensibility. I think there's something I love about it as relates to water, because you think about us being water, and then heating all of this water up in our body, and then doing these shapes where we're moving it through important organs and muscles and stuff, and it's like afterwards I just feel so great, and I know it's because of the water. So anyway, yeah, I do teach hot yoga. I also do coaching for people, focusing kind of on, whatever they're interested in, whether it's, relationships or business or just personal growth and development. And I also have a retreat program set up where I've got a couple retreats planned already. One for goddess yoga, people who are interested in becoming goddess yoga teachers or instructors. Goddess yoga is a kind of a belly dance, vinyasa flow, and kundalini inspired yoga. And so, and then I've got an upcoming retreat in the fall for cancer survivors. So people who, not just breast cancer, but any kind of, anyone who's either had a diagnosis or had someone in their family with a diagnosis or a friend. It's going to be focused on coming through something like that and being better, stronger, more empowered, freer, happier. So yeah, and that's under Yoga Tree Sedona. So I've got For Authenticity coaching and then retreats by Yoga Tree. Okay. So the concept of freedom, which is touched on quite a bit in Divine Macroverse, is, to me, it's really important, and it was a huge relief to find out that there are structures, or for lack of better terminology, laws in place, right? That it's not just a free-for-all. You can't just abuse people's powers. You can't take people's freedoms from them. This is not okay. And the reason that we're here at this time is to ensure that this never happens again. That's why we're taking the long road. So I just think freedom right now is a real important concept, with all of us at home and dealing with this virus and really understanding what it means to be free and, freedom to move, freedom to do things and have choices. And really, I think once we get through all this, we'll have a greater respect for freedom as an important element of our lives,
For sure. Who would have been 4 weeks ago that we won't be able to travel and the resorts during March break will be empty, like ghost towns. So that's very important to understand and appreciate later on. But also there is, the concern that this type of freedom might be taken away. So we also have to be conscious of that and see how we're gonna respond to that type of constraint.
Yeah, I know it's definitely, these are interesting times and hopefully we'll get through it. But, it's crazy to think about like all of the resorts here are empty. This is usually people moving through Sedona and it's busy and the trails are shut down. So yeah, I definitely think freedom is something that's really important to us, as human beings, but also, it's important to every living thing on the planet and beyond.
Rainey, it's been a pleasure as usual to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice of you to talk to me, and I really enjoyed connecting with you again.
Thank you. Bless you.
All right. Bless you. Take care.